Jiang Yurong, the 25-year-old Harvard graduate, is once again at the center of a new controversy. Not only was her exclusive interview with Phoenix News quickly deleted, but the Secretary General of the China Green Development Foundation (CGDF), who supported her, also suddenly resigned, raising eyebrows. Meanwhile, Donald Trump's alma mater, the New York Military Academy (NYMA), has made shocking headlines. Liu Yuzhong, CEO of Guanghuo Education Group and an alleged Chinese intelligence official, recently acquired the school from Mo Tianquan, CEO of Sofan Holdings. The New York Military Academy (NYMA), a university preparatory boarding school, is one of America's oldest military schools, with a history spanning 136 years. From 1959 to 1964, Donald Trump attended the academy. School records show that Trump served as a company commander and was promoted to captain and for senior staff upon graduating in 1964. Photos show that during his time at NYMA, Trump participated in various team sports, including football, wrestling, and baseball, and was voted most popular with the ladies in a popularity poll. Stephen Cheung, White House Communications Director, stated that President Trump is proud of his time at the New York Military Academy. He learned important virtues that helped him become one of the greatest businessmen in the world and ultimately the elected President of the United States twice. However, recent investigation by the conservative media outlet Daily Caller News Foundation (DCN) found that President Trump's alma mater was recently sold by an individual with close ties to Chinese intelligence to another individual. The acquisition amount was not disclosed. According to Chinese state media, Mo Tianquan, CEO of Sofan Holdings, originally acquired the bankrupt academy in 2015 for approximately $16 million through the Nature Conservancy Research Center, a non-profit organization he controlled. The Wall Street Journal reported on June 4 that Liu Yuzhong, CEO of Guanghuo Education Group, recently acquired the New York Military Academy from Mo Tianquan. What's surprising is that, according to Chinese state media, both Mo Tianquan and Liu Yuzhong have served in various positions for the Chinese government and its intelligence and influence apparatus, the United Front Work Department (UFWD). The U.S. House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party (CCP) stated that the UFWD's actions are a unique combination of influence activities and intelligence operations. The CCP uses these operations to shape its political environment, including influencing other countries' policies towards the People's Republic of China and acquiring advanced foreign technology. Liu Yuzhong and Mo Tianquan both served as officials in the Western Returned Scholars Association (WRSK), an organization under the UFWD. This association is one of the two most important organizations involved in China's technology transfer efforts. The Daily Caller News Foundation also found that the WRSK website lists Mo Tianquan, the former owner and current board member of NYMA, as a director. Liu Yuzhong, the new chairman of NYMA's board, serves as the vice chairman of the WRSK Global Liaison Work Committee. According to Chinese media, a few years ago, Ruyuan City in Zhejiang Province hosted a 1,000 Talents Program conference, where Liu Yuzhong was appointed a talent ambassador. According to the FBI, the 1,000 Talents program is one of many talent recruitment programs by the Chinese government. All these programs encourage participants to steal foreign technology needed to advance China's national military and economic goals. Furthermore, according to the Chinese government, both Liu and Mo have served as representatives to the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference (CPPCC). This has raised concerns among analysts that the New York Military Academy could be used by the CCP as a staging ground for covert operations, especially given its close proximity and ties to West Point. Steve Yates, a former Chinese analyst for the U.S. National Security Agency and former Deputy National Security Advisor to Vice President Dick Cheney, and currently a senior research fellow on China and national security policy at the conservative think tank Heritage Foundation, stated that Chinese military and CCP intelligence networks may view the acquisition of the New York Military Academy as a way to establish contacts with those who may interact with West Point, whether through close proximity or other means. He added, "I have no doubt that Chinese intelligence and military agencies would find this valuable. It's a way to try to cultivate connections that could have influence with the president." or have an opportunity to meet the president in the future. He also said, "They have a lot of people, and they can play the probability game, so they might fail 999 times, but if one of them one day becomes the president of the United States, that's like hitting the jackpot." According to NYMA announcements, the Academy has taken students to visit the West Point Museum and Chapel, hosted events at West Point's Eisenhower Hall and Thayer Hall, and utilized the West Point campus to enhance leadership training programs. The Academy's announcements also stated that it has invited Chinese visitors to tour West Point. A West Point spokesperson told DCNF that West Point has no affiliation with the New York Military Academy. Entry to the U.S. Military Academy grounds is controlled by strict security protocols. For security reasons, we will not disclose further details about security measures. Now, let's talk about the Harvard student, Jiang Yurong. Her graduation speech at the Harvard Kennedy School's Master of Public Administration and International Development program on May 29 ignited a public outcry. Jiang Yurong was the first Chinese woman in Harvard's nearly 400-year history to be invited to speak at the graduation ceremony. She delivered a speech titled Our Humanity, advocating for understanding, inclusion, and a global community with a shared future. However, unexpectedly, her speech quickly faced overwhelming online scrutiny, transforming her from a positive role model into a target of public criticism. Recently, Jiang Yurong gave an exclusive interview to Phoenix News, hoping to clarify the controversy. Instead, the result was a deeper mess, full of inconsistencies. The article went viral immediately after publication, and Phoenix News quickly deleted it, but the full text was preserved by the China Digital Times website. The title of this interview was Explosive, relying on connections to get into Harvard for a speech. Jiang Yurong responds exclusively to the fake and empty allegations. The article began by stating that Jiang Yurong lived in a shared apartment near Harvard University. Speaking about her current situation, she admitted she didn't know if the recent stir she caused on social media would attract the attention of US authorities. She said, "What I can do now is to not wear ragged clothes at home, lest I look too bad when the immigration enforcement officers come to arrest me." This might have been half joking, but it also indicates her awkward predicament. She originally thought she could bask in the glory of her Harvard speech, show off her elite persona, and gain both fame and fortune. But she never expected her image to collapse so quickly, leading to such an embarrassing situation today. You probably still remember Jiang Yurong's heartfelt words in her graduation speech. "If there is a woman in the world who cannot afford sanitary pads, that is my poverty. If a girl drops out of school for fear of harassment, that is my dignity humiliated. If a child dies in a war he neither provoked nor understood, then part of my life also dies with him." However, sharp-eyed netizens noticed that when Jiang Yurong was interviewed by the Associated Press after her speech, two Americans were fighting behind her. Netizens questioned how Ms. Jiang could care about global issues but ignore what was happening right beside her. In the Phoenix News interview, she responded, "I clearly heard the fighting behind me. It was very noisy and had been going on for a while, but it was an interview, and the reporter didn't stop it, so I continued to concentrate on answering the questions." She continued to explain, "The two old men were actually playing chess, and they started fighting while playing. It was a very comical and ordinary dispute. And then, at the very moment I spoke about humanity rising and falling together, they fell down." Netizens mocked her, saying, Jiang Yurong stood there talking grandly about humanity rising and falling together, while behind her, two old men rose and fell over a game of chess. This scene is simply a real-life version of the community of shared future for mankind, Chessboard Edition. In the Phoenix News interview, Jiang Yurong also explained her speech draft. She said the draft was revised in rounds and that she was very satisfied with it. "Every sentence is substantial, otherwise it wouldn't have resonated so much worldwide. If it were just an empty text without a soul, it wouldn't have achieved the impact it has today." However, some netizens found Barack Obama's 2004 presidential campaign speech, suggesting Jiang Yurong might have plagiarized. Obama concluded his speech by saying, "If there's a child on the south side of Chicago who can't read, then it is my problem, even if it's not my child. If there's an elderly citizen somewhere who can't pay for their prescription drugs and has to choose between medicine and paying the rent, then that makes my life poorer, even if it's not my grandparent. If an Arab-American family is being rounded up without benefit of an attorney or due process, then that threatens my civil liberties. It is that basic belief, that fundamental belief, that is how this country works. The most sensitive topic is still Jiang Yurong's family background. Shortly after her Harvard speech, Jiang Yurong's background was scrutinized. Her father is the executive director of the China Biodiversity Conservation and Green Development Foundation (CBCGDF), and she allegedly received a recommendation letter to Harvard from the foundation's Secretary General, Zhou Jinfeng. Netizens speculated that Jiang Yurong might have used her father's connections to get into Harvard, entering through the back door of the CBCGDF. Jiang Yurong also responded to this, stating that her mother and father divorced years ago, and she achieved all her accomplishments at Harvard through hardship and poverty. She admitted that Zhou Jinfeng, the Secretary General of the CBCGDF, did indeed provide her with a recommendation letter for her Harvard application, but she ultimately did not use it. As for her father, she claimed he never received a salary from the CBCGDF. She also revealed that my dad is actually a very contradictory person. He has a lot of social ideals and a good public conscience, but a very poor private morality. She added that her father received a lump sum compensation when he left his previous job, and along with his savings, he donated 1 million yuan to the CBCGDF. As public opinion fermented, the CBCGDF also came under scrutiny from netizens. Some netizens exposed that the CBCGDF, under the guise of marine litter monitoring, collected sensitive data such as marine latitude and longitude, wind speed, and wind direction, and then transferred it to overseas cloud drives. In addition, the CBCGDF was accused of soliciting funds everywhere under the banner of public welfare, but its accounts were reportedly chaotic and the whereabouts of its funds were unclear. And at this critical juncture, Zhou Jinfeng, the Secretary General of the CBCGDF, suddenly resigned. He wrote on Weibo, "Thanks to all the supporters. We recently received many calls supporting the Harvard Chinese graduate speaker. Briefly, 1. Chinese overseas students are currently facing pressure from various parties, and we hope to continue to firmly support Chinese students' legitimate and proper path to study. 2. We hope to continue recommending young people we know, especially volunteers, for further study and development." But at the end of his post, he unexpectedly revealed, "We have also received many greetings and requests, but it is very regrettable that I am no longer serving as the Secretary General of the China Green Development Foundation and cannot promote the implementation of relevant unit statements. Please understand. This move seems very strange, hinting at political maneuvering and hidden agendas behind it." Furthermore, Jiang Yurong's account of being repeatedly dragged to deserted areas and bullied by a group of girls, stripped of her clothes, has also been scrutinized by netizens. Initially, Jiang Yurong posted that she had experienced severe bullying in junior high school. Her original words were, "Many times a group of girls pressed me down in the wild and stripped me naked to humiliate me." Local netizens reported that there was no wild area near Qingdao 65 Middle School, and media could verify the situation with local teachers and students. So, Jiang Yurong changed a group of girls to a group of girls from outside school and in the wild to in an uninhabited place. In the Phoenix News interview, Jiang Yurong further revised her statement, changing pressed down to forced to, uninhabited place to a place with few people, stripped naked to stripped my clothes, and many times to a total of 3 or 4 times. Perhaps Jiang Yurong did experience misfortune, as such incidents are very common in China today. However, her inconsistent statements have led netizens to question her credibility. Regarding online claims that her mother was so poor she couldn't even pay rent, and wondering where the money came from to send her daughter to the notoriously expensive universities in the UK and US, Jiang Yurong responded that her father covered the 4 years of undergraduate study in the UK and US. "But I wanted to quickly become financially independent from my family because I was always threatened with having my living expenses cut off. So, once I started working, I wanted to quickly escape financial dependence on my parents." She also said, "Many people question whether I can really afford such expensive graduate tuition after working for only 3 or 4 years. But they don't know that when I was working at Credit Suisse in North Carolina, I rented a small, dilapidated room for $400 a month. The rent was not exaggerated. Besides the $400 rent and food expenses, I saved everything else. However, some netizens actually checked local rents and found that even for a small, dilapidated room, the minimum monthly rent was close to $1,000. So, did she lie? In reality, the Harvard girl's explanations, whether true or false, are ultimately just superficial. The controversy behind this incident reflects to social phenomena. As the engine of China's economic growth gradually loses momentum, the ladder of upward social mobility seems to have been pulled away by an invisible hand. The dream that young people once believed in that hard work would lead to success is now faltering amid high unemployment and the shadow of economic downturn. Jiang Yurong's aura as a Harvard graduate, which should have been an inspirational symbol admired by countless people, instantly ignited the anger of netizens due to the strong whiff of fake and empty in her words. Furthermore, as American society returns to tradition and US-China relations become more adversarial, Jiang Yurong's promotion of Day at Harvard and her repetition of the CCP's community of shared future rhetoric further ignited the discontent of overseas Chinese with the CCP. That's all for today. If you like our program, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you all. See you next time.